Let's see. Test, test, test. All right, so we're live. Just setting up my camera now, and I've noticed that there's a delay. Hold on one second. All right, so welcome to Theo Michael Talks. We're going to start here a little early, 5 o'clock. We're going to do an Antman Quantumania review and kind of explain a little bit about some of the storylines and everything. And then I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer everybody's questions or anything. I'm not able to see them on here. I'll have to fix that. But if you leave your questions underneath in the comments, please like, subscribe, and then leave us comments, and then I'll get back with you personally. Are we back? Okay, sorry about that. First off, Antman Wasp Quantumania, recently released by Marvel, and it was an excellent movie. I enjoyed it. It was a fun movie. It had a lot of things in it, and it could be overwhelming to those of you that are not used to comic books. And I really look at the fourth cycle of Marvel movies as a primer, introducing you to the wider world of these concepts that, while comic book readers are going to be used to them, the regular movie-going audience may not get into the multiverse and everything like that as deep. So there could be a lot of things that are confusing and overwhelming. And I know there's a lot of talk about comic book movie tolerance levels of people just getting tired of them, overused to them, and it does. I understand that concept, but it's one of those things where it is an enjoyable movie, and I think Marvel has done a really good job over the last year and a half of showing us the various versions or the different types of movies that they can do within this greater universe. So we had a grand epic scale, which was the Eternals, which was not a bad movie, but was very long-winded and had a lot of stuff building up on the cosmic nature of the next parts. So there's a lot of things to dig into the lore. Then you have something that they went with some of the TV shows, something that was totally off the charts and unknown as a new thing, a new breed, where they tackled the ideas of, through WandaVision, the different scenarios of sitcoms through the years with WandaVision. I thought it was very successful, and I enjoyed that show very much. And it also laid down the groundwork for what's going to be happening in a bigger scale in the movies. There was a lot of fan service stuff in the movies, such as with No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness, and that was needed. It was needed because there was a unknown aspect to going back to the movies after the quarantine, and so that helped people get back into the movies. And I think that showed that we could go back out, and that really helped us out going into the next level. With 5, this is the first series of the 5th cycle of Marvel movies. We're laying down the groundwork for this new villain. And while Thanos was an overarching villain, he really only showed up at the end of Avengers. They took the last few movies, like 4 or 5 movies before Avengers, to build up the Avengers and had them go against Loki. So with this one, I think we went around, and with Miss Marvel and other shows like that and Moon Knight, I think we're starting to see the groundwork of what's going on in the world behind the movies. Some subplots that show up that did not show up in this one, but did show up in some of the recent shows, such as in Wakanda, the Thunderbolts, and they'll have an overarching thing that comes out. And then also, I think the idea of mutants being into the Marvel Universe, and that's something that we're going to be seeing. So, on to Ant-Man and Wasp and Quantumania. Fun movie. I love the graphics. I love the story. I love how everything meshed together. One of the other underlying themes in 4 and now into 5 is each movie has set up a potential replacement for the main character. In reality, these actors aren't going to be around forever. And I know we're looking at a lot of digital recreation and face swapping and digital swapping, but eventually they're going to have the torch passed to someone else. And I think it's smart of Marvel to set up these legacy characters that can be used in other films that are younger and can last the test of time and go through. Now, the whole concepts that they introduce with the next legacy level of heroes and being younger has been subtle. This was the first time that really this one took the center. This was almost like an origin story for his daughter, which is Stature. The other concepts that they introduced here was the fact that Kang was only introduced in Loki at the end as He Who Remains. And now we see as Kang the Conqueror. So the concepts of variants and everything has been well built and set up both by Loki in the Disney Plus channel series and also in No Way Home and in Multiverse of Madness, so that we start to see that there can be this concept of multiple timelines or multiple versions. What I like was the way that the character of Kang was brought about. He was very well played. He was excellent, and he was ruthless. And we see that he's also very manipulative. And that's going to be a big part, especially when, I'm not going to mention them, but there are 2 after credit scenes that you may want to sit down and wait for. And if you're a Marvel fan and you haven't waited for Marvel credit scenes afterwards, shame on you. It's almost expected now. The other thing is, we see that Ant-Man still remains a entry-level, street-level kind of character, but at the same time, a lot of the stuff he does has the impact upon the bigger universe. And I think that's the story we kind of miss within this Ant-Man universe, is that they framed it so that he is working on a symbol of, taking care of his family, taking care of his neighbors, trying to do the best for everybody. What's too much, what's not enough. And then also how those little things, looking out for the little guy, has bigger repercussions. And he was basically the one that saved us in Endgame, because he was able to come out of the quantum realm and help us find a way to stop Thanos. Some key things that I've noticed, and I haven't seen anyone else really talk about, is we were talking about variants in Loki, but we were introduced to variants in Avengers Endgame. And Avengers Endgame, we have, I think, at least 3 different variants. And I'll name who they are. We have Thanos, because in Endgame, Thanos was defeated in the beginning of it, and then the one that was in the past came to our future. So he's a variant. We have the Gamora variant, and we also had the variant of Nebula, which was destroyed. So those were the three variants that we were introduced to, but the main variant is Loki, because he went out of the time stream during Endgame and then went off and spun off into the Loki TV show. So he himself is a variant dealing with variants. One of the other things that we also saw set up in the Loki show was that the Kangs had a multiversal war. There was a battle. Now, the question is, was that before or after the events that happened in the Marvel Universe? Because he's not linear. He's living in different timelines. So I guess before we go into that concept, we got to know where Kang come from. And a lot of my information comes from years of reading comic books, but I also defer to the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. This big tome is a omnibus that you can purchase and you can get at your local comic shop. The other thing is the first appearance of Kang in Avengers number 8 has been reprinted. So the original one's going for thousands of dollars, but at the same time, you can get a reprint or what they call a fast face mile edition at your local comic shop. And I know that some of them did go up in price, older ones and everything. But not only do they have his first appearance, but they have key appearances such as Immortus' appearance, and then also some of the things like the Council of Kangs and things like that. That will play a big part in the coming Kang Dynasty programs. In this book, it talks about how Kang is a descendant of Nathaniel Richards, the same Richards who was the father of Reed Richards. And he was also inspired and may be a partial descendant to Dr. Doom or Victor Von Doom. Remember that name. It may play a big part coming forward in the next series. This man was in the future, and he lived in a utopian society and was bored, and he thought there was something more. He found a time machine that was from his descendant, which was created by Nathaniel Richards, and I believe it's the same one that was used by Dr. Doom. And it was one of those things that he decided to tinker with it and get it to work, and he went back in time to see if he could be able to rule or conquer or become somebody important and live to the maximum of his life. And he decided to go to the second dynasty in Egypt. And that's where he becomes Ramatut. And as Ramatut, he rules for about 5 to 10 years before the Fantastic Four come across his path. And in that point, he has to go into the time stream. While in the time stream, he experiences some flux in the time stream, a disturbance, and he ends up meeting Dr. Doom, becomes inspired by him, and then is stuck because of that time storm in a limbo where he meets Immortus. Immortus happens to be a version of Kang in the future who is less about conquering through battle and metal and prowess, but by using his wits to outmaneuver anyone and play a massive chess game on a universal level to coordinate things and create. And very similar to like He Who Remains, but may still be another version of Kang that we see. He ends up going back into the future and overshoots where he lived and goes into a future where it's not a utopia, but actually a constant battlefield that everybody's trying to overthrow everybody else using advanced weaponry. Inspired by Dr. Doom, he builds his own armor, the version that we see as Kang. Using his scientific knowledge and his armor, he ends up taking over that world and decides to use it as a power base to go back and forth and around time to conquer worlds and conquer different time zones. So this is the armor as it is in the comic book. And very similar to what he's wearing. So they're very good at comic reference for the uniforms, updating them for the film and everything. This is the He Who Remains. Excellently played. And we don't have an Immortus figure yet. So, multiple times, Kang has been thwarted by the Avengers. And so he becomes a mortal enemy of the Avengers, and in fact was used by Peter David in the last Avengers story, a 2-issue prestige format, where it sees us deal with the last of the Avengers, and a lot of them have Kang has conquered the future, and the last of the Avengers have to battle him and fight him. And oddly enough, Hank Pym is the hero of that story. And so it's interesting to see his relation with Antman. Back to the movie now. The movie version is very similar, so there's a lot of things that they're using, but we don't know all of his backstory. In the movie, we find that he has been trapped in the quantum zone, and somehow he feels like he's lost so much, and he's afraid of someone else who is worse and is coming. This is also portrayed in the Loki series, and they announced that there is somebody who's worse. And this is something that's going to be played about through the movies, I think, in a kind of like a subplot as we get to the Kang Dynasty. Some of the movies that they've shown in Disney Plus and also throughout the rest of the shows have had some subtle Easter eggs pertaining to Kang, such as in Moon Knight, we see mention or the symbol of Ramatut used several times throughout the show. And we also see some mention of it in Marvel's, in Miss Marvel, which I think Miss Marvel is one of the best shows that they had on the Disney Plus show. It was an excellent show. Antman and Quantumania was a good show, had a lot of stuff going on, but they had so many characters that I think they spent enough time on there, but I don't feel like you got to know the progression of more than just the two main characters, which seems to be Ant-Man and his daughter. There was some progression for Hank Pym and also for Janet Pym, but we don't see a lot of progression there for the Wasp. And we do spend a lot of time with the villain, which I love that part. And we look forward to seeing where he is going to go from there. A lot of things in there that it takes multiple screenings to see what's going on, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's what's going on with Kang and with Immortus. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil the movie for you, but once it's been out for a while, we will do some further in depth. What's next on the agenda? We have to wait and see because they did make some changes. So the Marvels moved to November. They pushed back a little bit on Loki season 2, but he is going to be, I believe, the next one that's coming up. And that should explain, as he looks like he's going to be searching for what happened to him after the end of his last series. Let's hope it continues and he goes into the movie versions again, which I think is highly likely. Please like, comment, and subscribe. On your comments, let me know what you think. Give me some of your weird ideas. I'd love to think about it and talk about your theories. And we'll sit back. So if there's anything that you guys would like to talk about, again, I'm a new channel. I'm going to try and build up some stuff and increase my use of graphics and things like that. But bear with me, and hopefully we'll go along and have fun on the ride. Have a good one.